if they don't moderate and monitor the content, we lose total control.
Now, we got to check in on friend of the podcast, Hillary Clinton, that lovely, lovely lady, because she is back. And apparently, she wants to censor Americans on social media. Here's a clip from an interview on CNN that Secretary Clinton just did, where she was very open about her desire to see more speech censored on social media and more Americans' ideas taken down online. Let's take a listen.
Here's what disappoints me, and it's not about you, Madam Secretary. I'm shocked that no person, no Republican, no Democrat is championing this issue. The social science is so clear. The political science is so clear. Our fabric is frayed as a nation. Our kids are disconnected. Too much time behind closed doors on devices and not enough time replicating the experience of their parents and grandparents. So what do we do about it? What do we do about it for your grandkids?
Well, Michael, there are people who are championing it, but it's been a long and difficult road to get anything done. Actually, we can look at the state of California, the state of New York. I think some other states have also taken action, but we need national action. And sadly, our Congress has been dysfunctional when it comes to addressing these threats to our children. So you're absolutely right. This should be at the top of every legislative political agenda. There should be a lot of things done. We should be, in my view, repealing something called Section 230, which gave platforms on the internet immunity because they were thought to be just pass-throughs, that they shouldn't be judged for the content that is posted. But we now know that that was an overly simple view, that if the platforms, whether it's Facebook or Twitter X or Instagram or TikTok, whatever they are, if they don't moderate and monitor the content, we lose total control. And it's not just the social and psychological effects, it's real harm. It's, child porn and threats of violence, things that are terribly dangerous. So I couldn't agree with you more. We need to remove the immunity from liability, and we need to have guardrails. We need regulation. We've conducted this big experiment on ourselves and particularly our kids, and I think the evidence is in that we've got to do more. Take phones out of schools. I'm so happy to see schools beginning to do that, where the kids turn their phone in when they walk in the door. And guess what, Michael? It won't surprise you because you're on this. Kids are paying better attention in class. They are talking to each other in the lunchroom, things that used to be part of your daily life when you were a child in school.
So there's a lot here. And I'll just say she's conflating a couple different things. And I do agree. I think it's great that schools are banning phones and kids should not be having their phones during the day in class and everything that's really harmful. But that's a totally different issue than regulating social media and repealing liability protections for social media platforms. On that, Clinton is dead wrong, and I'm going to explain why. But first, I just have to say, this all feels like cope to me. Hillary still blames frickin' Facebook and memes spread by Russia or whatever that barely even reached any people and were cringe and not effective. She actually still thinks that's why she lost, not because of anything about her. So I think a lot of her venom and desire to see social media companies punished by the government through regulation and having their protections stripped away, even though those protections, as I'll explain, are part of what enabled them to prosper and thrive and become these platforms we all use and enjoy. I think that's what's motivating it, honestly, is just cope that she's still mad she lost and is still blaming them for it rather than looking inwards. And there's just something so creepy about hearing a former government official say how much it bothers her that we've lost control of the conversation online. Babe, you were never supposed to have control over the conversation, over what Americans can say and what thoughts we can express, okay? You have a very distorted view of the proper role of government when it comes to speech and the internet. And that shows with her very shallow and dumb analysis of Section 230. Now, for context, I want to explain to you guys what exactly Section 230 is and what it does. It's a federal law that provides civil liability immunity for social media platforms for the speech that other people post on their websites and their platforms. So essentially, if I post on Twitter something that is defamatory about Hillary Clinton, right? And so defamation is a civil offense. I could be sued for it. What it's saying is that Twitter can't be sued for what I posted to their platform. that they are allowed to moderate content, but that they still enjoy liability protections so that other people's speech on their platforms isn't something they're liable for. If Twitter publishes something, if Facebook publishes something, if YouTube publishes something like a trending tab or a news description or an update or their own post, they're still liable for all of that. They're just not liable for what other people say on their platforms. That's just common sense. Facebook shouldn't be civilly liable for the things I write on Facebook. I should be. And it's also necessary for these platforms to exist and operate in the way that they do, because so much stuff is uploaded to Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok every single day that if they were potentially legally liable for anything, what they would have to do is screen all of it through legal teams and heavy censorship processes, and they couldn't have this system where like billions of hours of video is uploaded to YouTube every day. That wouldn't be possible. Things would have to wait days to be approved by lawyers or some really system that wouldn't be workable. And that's why Section 230 is often considered the law that made the internet as we know it possible, because without it, it's just hard to imagine how any of these platforms could have ever come into existence. And I have to say, Secretary Clinton is just living in fantasy land when she talks about how these platforms don't moderate content. What are you talking about? They all moderate content very heavily. I would argue too much and too aggressively in many cases. And she talks about threats of violence and about child abuse material. That stuff is moderated by platforms very heavily, as it should be, and doesn't mean that they should suddenly be able to be sued for every dumb thing someone posts on what is essentially a platform. If we were to get rid of Section 230, it would lead to a massive increase in the amount of social media censorship that these companies engage in. All of a sudden, they'd have to take down way more content and screen content before it goes up because they could potentially be sued over everything that somebody posts. So it makes sense why people like Hillary Clinton, who are pretty open about their disdain for free speech, why they would support this. But what's bizarre is that many people on the right who say they care about free speech and are against big tech censorship, like Donald Trump, actually agree and also want to get rid of Section 230 protections. This is what's so odd to me. I don't really expect better from the Hillary Clintons of the world, right? The establishment politicians who have been very open about the fact that they love control and they want more control over everyday citizens. But people like Trump say they support free speech and say they're against the establishment, but then they want to undercut protections that allow the free flow of information and ideas and expression online, like Section 230, just because they hate these companies so much. So they just want to punish these companies, which, look, I have no love lost for any of the big tech giants, but it seems totally counterproductive to me. Because again, if they got rid of Section 230, like Trump and Hillary Clinton and many others want, all these platforms would have to start heavily pre-screening and pre-approving content and not allowing anything online that could potentially get them in legal trouble if they're responsible for every word. Censorship would skyrocket. That's why it's so strange to me to see Republicans against Section 230, because they're supposed to be against social media censorship and in favor of free speech online and on social media, but their actual position's implication on this issue would have the absolute opposite effect. That's just my take on this. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below, and let me know, do you want Hillary to keep popping up and doing interviews, or are you like me ready for her to ride off into the sunset and just stop returning to public life, please?